Radio 9 News, a presentation of the BK Machine Company and the Muncie Broadcasting Corporation. Israeli Air Force interceptors shot down a Libyan Boeing 727 after it wandered over the occupied Sinai Peninsula and refused orders to land. The Israeli announcement listed 70 persons as dead and 13 as having survived the crash. The Israeli government news office retracted an earlier report that the craft exploded. The announcement said the plane had penetrated as much as 50 miles into Sinai, overflying a military base when Israeli planes were sent up. An earthquake centered near Oxnard shook Southern California today. 5 people are reported as slightly injured and some buildings damaged. Oxnard Police Sergeant Bill Lewis says emergency measures were immediately taken.
We're mostly securing the downtown areas and everything. We're trying to get the businessmen to get to their businesses. We're protecting them and everything as much as we possibly can until they do arrive. We've got alarms sounding throughout the town, all of the businesses.
Some small fires were also reported in the quake area. Los Angeles fireman Ed Castle says the quake did more psychological damage than anything else.
We have returned the helicopters to the landing strip. We've had no reports of injuries, no reports of property damage. I think it was all, the psychological damage is far greater than the property damage this morning.
It was just about 2 years ago that a quake killed 64 people and injured more than 1,000 in the San Fernando Valley area of Los Angeles. Gary Demery, one of the men at work.
For years now, you've relied on BK Machine to rebuild engines, but there's a facet of their operation you may not know about. BK Machine has Muncie's largest in-stock supply of engine parts, including rings, bearings, pistons, valves, gaskets, and oil pumps. For complete machine shop service, it's BK Machine, member of the Automotive Engine Rebuilding Association. Also, BK Machine has electronic engine balancing, drive shaft parts and service, and power takeoff parts. BK Machine, quality parts and service since 1905. BK Machine, 1215 South Franklin.
Radio 9 News Time, 4:11. Following a high-speed chase last night, a Muncie man is spending some time in the Fort Lauderdale, Florida jail. 35-year-old Donald Kennedy of Muncie is charged with a myriad of offenses after being arrested following a high-speed chase which began in Hollywood, Florida. Kennedy apparently ignored a police order to stop and took off at a 75-mile-per-hour clip. When the smoke cleared, Kennedy was under arrest. 4 cars were badly damaged, and 1 policeman was sent to the hospital for treatment of injuries. President Nixon hit the airwaves again today and said his Phase 3 economic enforcement will be tough. The president also said he plans to wage all-out war on rising food prices, saying his inflation control programs hopefully will have food costs under control by the second half of this year.
We will probably see increases in food prices for some months to come. The underlying cause of this problem is that food supplies have not risen fast enough to keep up with the rapidly rising demand. But we must not accept rising food prices as a permanent feature of American life. We must halt this inflationary spiral by attacking the causes of rising food prices on all fronts.
President Nixon on nationwide radio today. 9 more Muncie policemen have become a part of the department's in-service training program effective tomorrow. Chief Cordell Campbell tells us Patrolman Earl Hoover will move from uniform duty to the Juvenile Aid Division. Investigator Charles Hyatt switches from Juvenile Aid to uniform. Patrolman Charlie Hitson will move back to his old job in narcotics from the Uniform Bureau. Patrolman Henry Gudger will revert back from narcotics to uniform duty. Investigator Jack Haynes moves from uniform to detectives. Patrolman James Thomas switches back to uniform from a short hitch with the detectives. Investigator Don Buchanan moves to the uniform division from detectives. Patrolman Mike Austin moves up to detectives from the uniform ranks. And Patrolman Mike Hahn will switch shifts within the Uniform Bureau. Chief Campbell says the switches are to extend the department's in-service training program.
The reasoning for the switches is continuing the in-service training program. Most of the transfers, which involves, and others that like the Policeman of the Month, Earl Hoover, which they have their choice after being chosen Policeman of the Month to choose their division they want to work into the next 30 days.
Muncie Police Chief Cordell Campbell. Senator Birch Bayh says the fuel crisis here in Indiana will get worse before it gets better. The Hoosier Democrat says that unless emergency steps are taken now, When the farmers get their tractors back into the fields this spring, there'll be a diesel fuel crisis Bai describes as like nothing you've ever seen. Bai was instrumental in obtaining 4.5 million gallons of fuel during the late fall harvest here in Indiana. He appeared today on an afternoon talk show televised by Indianapolis television station WRTV. White House sources say Soviet Communist Party leader Leonid Brezhnev has told President Nixon that the Vietnam peace may be a door opener for better Moscow-Washington relations. That word came in a letter to Nixon today.
Brezhnev's letter expresses a profound satisfaction with the ceasefire agreement. The Soviet leader adds, "We are confident that the end of the bloodshed in Vietnam has a tremendous significance and will be warmly welcomed by all people of goodwill." Brezhnev goes on to say that the Vietnam settlement eliminates one of the most dangerous hotbeds of international tensions and that it facilitates the healthening of the whole world situation. Such developments, he continues, are bound to have a positive effect on relations between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. Don Folsom at the White House.
A young man armed with a pistol robbed the bookstore on the Indiana University Northwest campus at Gary this afternoon of $132. Authorities tell us the gunman apparently had at least one other accomplice, and both were described as between 18 and 21 years old. Police say the bandit took a small amount of money from one cashier, but a larger amount was being counted by a second cashier in an office nearby. There were two other persons in the store at the time, but neither knew about the robbery. The Republican campaign chief, who blatantly disregarded an order from the White House during the last fall campaign, is now taking his own sweet time about leaving his job.
The conservative chairman of the House Republican Campaign Committee, under fire from the White House, said he will leave the job, but not until he wants to. Bob Wilson of California, who's had the job 12 years, did not say when that would be. There was an abortive drive reportedly engineered by the White House to dump Wilson early this year in the caucus of all House Republicans. It was understood that Wilson had disregarded White House orders to leave about 50 friendly Democratic congressmen alone, to make them untouchables. Wilson made his announcement at a news conference called to announce a Republican talent search for congressional candidates. It's an effort caused by the GOP's failure to cash in on President Nixon's coattails in last year's election. Pi Chamberlain, Capitol Hill.
The Food and Drug Administration will approve the so-called morning after use of the controversial drug DES as an emergency contraceptive. The FDA said the decision was made on the basis of a unanimous recommendation from an advisory panel. WERK, first in the Midwest with Radio 9 News.
If you never saw the green grass anymore, 'cause it's covered up by litter from the folks there before you, what would you do? What would you do? If you never saw the sky, or the soot that's in your eye, or the garbage piled so high, what would you do? You've got to pitch in to clean up America. You've got to pitch in to clean up America. 'Cause if everybody won't pitch in to clean up America, it won't be America anymore. Oh no.
Wickland weather, then the Commodore remembers the Rolling Stones from 1967. Look for clearing skies tonight, low 17. Cloudy and cold tomorrow, high near 33. Currently at work, 31 degrees. This news a presentation of the BK Machine Company, 1215 South Franklin Street, and the Muncie Broadcasting Corporation. Working for you, Gary Demery, Radio 9 News. WERK. Radio 9 News, a presentation of Mutual Home Federal Savings and Loan Association and the Muncie Broadcasting Corporation. The White House says a joint communique will be issued tomorrow by the United States and China to describe presidential advisor Henry Kissinger's visit to Peking. It said the announcement would be followed by a news conference by Kissinger. The White House also said Kissinger met with President Nixon for an hour today and will meet again later today. They held discussions for 2 hours yesterday. A jostling earthquake hit Southern California today, causing little damage outside a few broken windows and damaged buildings. A spokesman for the Caltech Seismology Lab in Pasadena, Don Anderson, compared today's quake with the big one back in February of 1971.
The magnitude of the San Fernando earthquake was 6.4. The present estimate of the magnitude of today's earthquake is 5 3/4, which would place it about 3 times smaller than the San Fernando earthquake.
And Anderson says aftershocks can be expected for some time.
The aftershocks from this one will be correspondingly smaller than after the San Fernando, and they'll last a shorter amount of time. So we should be feeling aftershocks for days and possibly weeks.
Don Anderson of the Caltech Seismology Lab in Pasadena, California. A Muncie Marine has been identified as one of the 6 servicemen killed in a head-on collision near Jacksonville, North Carolina on Monday. The Indiana man was 20-year-old Marine Private First Class James Zerbaugh of Muncie. Gary Demery, one of the men at work.
How would you like a $100 check every month? The check a month plan at Mutual Home Federal Savings and Loan can make it happen. Invest $20,000 in a 6% 2-year savings certificate at Mutual Home Federal. At your request, they'll mail you an earnings check for $100 once a month, every month, for as long as your certificate is on deposit. This is money to use however you'd like to use it. Mutual Home Federal's check a month plan. Convenient, automatic, and best of all, your principal savings remain untouched and insured safe. Check it out at Mutual Home Federal of Muncie.
Radio 9 News Time, 5:12. The shooting down of a Libyan airliner over the occupied Sinai Desert is bringing repercussions. Most of those aboard were killed. Israel said the plane had refused to heed warning shots or repeated instructions to land. About 70 people aboard that Boeing 727 were killed. About 13 survived. American aviation sources say U.S. commercial planes flying Middle East routes have redoubled security measures in fear of Arab reprisals. And from London, the rumblings from the International Airline Pilots Association indicates a global airstrike may come about.
Airline pilots are still studying reports of the incident, but first indications are they may call for an international strike of all air services. Members of the International Air Pilots Association have reacted strongly in the past on such issues as air piracy. They even held a mild strike over that. The common feeling here among pilots is a protest walkout, one perhaps lasting 48 hours. During that time, no pilots belonging to the Pilots Association would fly. And if that transpires, it could bring most world airlines grinding to a halt. Chris Lodge, London.
35-year-old Donald Kennedy of Muncie is cooling his heels in the Fort Lauderdale, Florida jail today after a high-speed chase last night. Kennedy apparently ignored a police order to stop in Hollywood, Florida, and took off at speeds reaching 75 miles per hour. He's charged with several offenses, including drunk driving. After the chase, 4 cars were badly damaged. Kennedy, of course, was under arrest, and 1 policeman was sent to the hospital for treatment of injuries. Another installment in the Muncie Police Department's in-service training program was announced today by Chief Cordell Campbell. The chief listed the latest switches among the ranks.
Patrolman Earl Hoover from the Uniform Bureau to the Juvenile Aid Division. Investigator Charles Hyatt from the Juvenile Aid Division to the Uniform Bureau. Patrolman Henry Gudger from the Narcotics Unit to the Uniform Bureau. Patrolman Charles Hitson from the Uniform Bureau to the Narcotics Unit. Investigator Jack Haynes back from the Uniform Bureau back to the Detective Division.